Pranam, everybody. Welcome to the Introduction to Jainism class today. We'll start with the prayers as usual. I'll begin with the slides.
Ajit bhai, please turn your video on.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Hope everybody can see me now. Okay, I'm just trying to organize this. Okay, hope you can all see my slides now.
Yes, we can.
You can? Okay, great. Okay. Let's start with the prayer. नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वज्रायाणं नमो लोये सप्पसाहुणम् एषो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सप्पपावपणासनो मङ्गलाणं च सव्येसिं परमं हवै मङ्गलम् वीरसुरसुरासुरेन्द्रमहितो वीरमुदा संश्रिता वीरेणाभियत स्वकर्म निचयो वीराय नित्यं नमः वीरातीर्थमिदं प्रभूतमतुलं वीरशघोरं तपो वीरे श्रीधृतिकीर्तिकान्तिनिचय श्रीवीरभद्रं दिश अंगूठे अमृतवसे लपतितणा भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये मनवांछित फलदातार entering a topic which is in some ways a basic introduction, but also at the heart of what Jainism is teaching us. And I'm going to include two separate areas and two separate very big topics. And we will slowly explore this subject over a period of 3 lessons. So the title of this class is, until we close for the Christmas festive season break, uh, is karma. In between, I'm away for 1 week, so somebody else will take the class, but I'm here for week 1 and then week 3 and 4. Sorry, week 1, week 2, and then week 4. So week 3, there will be somebody else taking the class. What I'm hoping to do is, over the 3-week period, we introduce a lot of new concepts, but try and get an understanding of what we are talking about. What I would suggest to all the listeners is that don't worry about uh, taking notes. Just try and listen carefully and make notes of any questions that you might have, that what we are reflecting on brings to your mind, and then we will try and address them in the last lesson, or when we have our face-to-face session, the date for which is probably going to be sometime in January. So we'll have about a 3 or 4 hours face-to-face session with lunch after that, as Sandeep has mentioned before, and we'll have a lot of time to discuss a lot of the questions at that time. Okay. Now, before we start the main topic of karma, let me introduce another very big topic. And this is just one slide with the names of the 9 tattvas or Nav Tattva. These 9 tattvas are a basic fundamental subject matter that all Jains should learn about and understand. It talks about what the universe is made of, who or what is in the universe, and what is the relationship between the sentient beings in the universe, that is the Jeev or the soul, and its ultimate destination, moksha, and what are the uh, mechanisms by which the soul has contaminated itself, and as a consequence of that is suffering from one life to another over an infinite time in the past. and what is the way of releasing the soul from this bondage and getting to a state where it is completely free, independent, and in its true natural state, whereby it is completely omniscient and totally blissful. And that is what all of us are striving, whether we know it or not. Every living being in the universe is searching and pursuing goals to make them happy. And happiness is the fundamental quality of the soul. Those of us, or all of us, actually have not really understood the nature of that fundamental happiness and bliss and the nature of our soul. So we seek this happiness and fulfillment in other things which are all temporary and which are not of ourself. So as a result of that misbelief or wrong belief, we carry on doing things that ultimately continue to bring us more pain and unhappiness with periods of some material happiness until we realize what is the truth and then choose a path which will take us towards moksha. So very briefly, the 9 tattvas that we are introducing here today. On this slide you can see it's, I'll just read out the names. It's Jeev, Ajeev, Pap, Punya, Ashrav, Samvar, Nirjara, Bandh, and Moksha. Jeev denotes life or anything which is living, so it basically is talking about all souls. Ajeev is all that is not sentient, meaning not alive. So that includes all material, but that includes other elements as well. So there are 5 Ajeev elements, and the one that we are going to be concentrating on is called Pudgal, that is matter, in other words. Pudgal is a term which basically describes the nature of this material. Pudgal means by nature it joins up and separates. So if you, those of you who are very keen on chemistry and physics, it's when the smallest indivisible particle of matter combines with others and forms larger chunks. So in chemistry we used to learn about atoms and molecules. So when a few different atoms get together and form molecules, and we used to learn about the formulae for these molecules. We're talking about that kind of matter, but what Jainism is talking about in addition to that matter is much more complex and a deeper understanding of matter. So that Pudgal is what we will be talking about. There are other non-life elements which we won't go into any detail, but those of you who might know something, I'll just mention the names. Pudgal is one, Dharmastikai, Adharmastikai. Dharmastikai is that element which allows movement of bodies, meaning material and the soul, within the universe. Adharmastikai is that element or ether which allows these bodies which can move to stay still. So it is that element which allows us to stay in one place if we so desire, and that is our Dharmastikai. Dharmastikai is the element that facilitates movements within the universe. Dharmastikai and Adharmastikai is confined to the universe within which the bodies, the soul and matter can move. Then there is Akash. Akash simply means space. There are two parts of this Akash. There is one which is called Lok Akash. Lok Akash is that within the space of the universe where bodies can move from one place to another, and that is the Chaudaraj Lok. There was a question about that last time, and we mentioned that the Chaud Rajlok or the 14 Rajlok is the Lok Akash, that is the confine of space within the universe within which the soul and matter can move from one place to another. And as we said last time, at the top of this Lok Akash is Siddhshila, where every soul which goes to moksha will ultimately travel straight up and stay there permanently. So we got Dharmastikai, Adharmastikai, Akashstikai, Pudgal, that I just mentioned, that is matter, and then Kal. Kal is time. So these are the 5 non-life elements. That is a Jeev. Jeev is all souls. Punya and Pap is good deeds and bad deeds in very simple language. Punya is what brings us material happiness. Pap is what will bring us pain and difficulties. By us, I mean every living being. Then there is the other tattva called ashrav. Ashrav is that which will allow the influx of karma into or to join up with the soul, and it is those things that we allow ourselves to take liberties with that attracts karmas, and we'll come to what happens to the karmas during these 3 weeks briefly. But it attracts karmas, and all those things that we do, all those liberties that we take that allow karmic bondage is called ashrav. Somewhere is those activities which will prevent the influx of karmas. Nirjara is the mechanism by which the karmas that are attached to the soul from before are actually got rid of. So Nirjara can happen as a result of the karma coming to fruition and showing its effect, or it can happen as a result of good deeds, tap, dhyan, all those things during which time, so all religious activities, Nirjara happens, and even during our daily activity, depending on the state of our mind and our soul, Nirjara is a function that is constantly happening, as is Bandh. Bandh is the next element, meaning the influx of karma and its bondage to the soul, so that it will show its effect in the future. And what happens when that bondage occurs, we'll talk about that during these 3 weeks. And ultimately, the last element, the 9th, is moksha, meaning liberation of the soul from any attachment to the karma when it is completely free. And until moksha happens, the soul is never free of karmic bondage, and that is why the soul or the jeev is called sansari until it goes to moksha, meaning its cycle of life and death will continue. So we are all sansari until we go to moksha. And the souls in moksha are called siddh. So jeev, meaning the souls, 2 divisions. Sansari, meaning those with a body, which will go from one life to another. So the soul will go from one life to another, changing a body as we change clothes. And siddh, meaning the soul which is completely free of all karma in its totally pure natural state of complete bliss, complete omniscience, and all the other qualities of the soul, and will never be attached to karmas again, and will therefore never be bonded by or imprisoned by a body. So the soul is completely free, never to come back. And that is the ultimate goal that all religions, actually, all these religions that talk about the soul are ultimately aiming for. The title of this 3 weeks course is basically the laws of karma. What is karma? Now, just to go a bit more deeper into Pudgal, meaning matter, Jainism teaches us that karma or karmic particles are a type of matter that is present, packed very tightly throughout the universe. That is present around us. We cannot obviously see it because it is extremely fine, and it is only something that an omniscient soul, Tirthankar Bhagwans and Keval Gnanis would be able to see. But by virtue of what it does, it's one of the most important elements of the effects of it is felt in everything that we do. So the limitations in our knowledge, the suffering or the material happiness that we enjoy, the wealth that we enjoy, the periods of poverty that we might suffer from, the illnesses that we suffer from, all those things are the effects of karma. So karma, the karmic particles are throughout the universe, but what is outside of us, meaning outside and not attached to the soul, has no effect on the soul. When those karmic particles are attracted to the soul by virtue of the activities, and there are 5 or 4 reasons why karma gets attracted to the soul and bonds with the soul. So we'll come to those 5 causes or the 5 elements of attraction of karma to the soul. It's only when the soul binds those karmas do those karmic particles then have the power to give us the fruits of those deeds. So when you talk about it's all karma, it is what you may have done in the past, but the mechanism by which that particular effect is exercised is a natural law by which nature has designed this system, that every soul, no matter what it does, builds up a balance sheet of good and bad, and a decision naturally is taken not by anybody, but the mechanism is organized in such a way that when a karma bonds with the soul, it is decided when it will come into fruition, what kinds of effect it will produce, how long will that last, and how that soul will suffer or enjoy as a result of that. All that power to the karma is given by us. That is why when we started this course, the first things that we talked about was the soul exists. The soul is eternal or infinite. There wasn't a time when the soul did not exist, and we're talking about each individual soul, and there will never be a time when the soul will actually cease to exist. So the soul is this. The soul has been eternal. The soul exists. The soul has been eternal. The soul is the creator of its own karma. Atma che, Atma nitya che, Atma karmano karta che. The soul is the one which will reap the benefits, the rewards and the punishments of its own karmas. Okay, Atma karmano karta che, Atma karmano bhokta che. And then the fifth element of this correct right belief is moksha che, meaning that there is a state from which in which the soul is completely liberated from this bondage with the karmas, and that is called moksha. And it is not just a theoretical concept, there is a way to achieve that. So moksha and a mokshno upaiche. Upaiche meaning that there is a way to do it. And dharma is the mechanism or the uh, is what will help us achieve that particular state. Now, these are some of the topics that we will be discussing as we go along. The nature of karmic particles I've just mentioned. I'm not going into the details of the other kinds of material particles that Jainism describes about. There is quite a lot of detail there, but just briefly, those are called vargana. Vargana is a collection of parmanu. Parmanu is the smallest indivisible particle of matter, which I mentioned is what Jainism has talked about forever, and it is not was not the atom or the neutron or the proton or the electron. We know about a lot more subatomic particles, and Jainism talks about the ultimate subatomic particle or the ultimate particle of matter, which is called Parmanu, and all matter is formed of that, and depending on how big the combination is, you have different types of material particles, of which karmic particles are one type of that uh, material, which is called karman vargana. Vargana is the name given to that unit of combined material particles. We'll talk about the effects of acquired karmas on the soul, the 8 main types of karma, the reasons why the soul acquires karma, meaning karma bandhana karano in Gujarati. What happens to karma once bonded to the soul, and the various changes that occur in karmas already attached to the soul. So, in many ways, some of us have come to believe that what Jainism is talking about is that you have no control over what happens to you, and once you have those karmas built up, there is no way of changing them. But that is not true. Karmas are constantly, those we've acquired in the past are constantly changing. Most of them are changing in some way or other. They may become stronger, they may become weaker, they may disappear. So all those changes and what are the different names of those changes that occur, we'll talk about. Now the soul in its pure state, very briefly, as I mentioned, has got omniscience, is total knowledge, is totally blissful, knows everything about can sort of see everything in its true nature, is completely happy and blissful, is infinitely powerful. It does not get born or die, meaning like in our attachment to karmas, we go through cycles of life and death from one life to another. So that is as a result of karma, but the soul in its pure state does not do that. The soul is also completely still and static and doesn't change. And the soul has got infinite qualities, but these are the 8 main qualities, and then therefore there are 8 main types of karma which block or reduce uh, the power of these 8 basic qualities. So therefore there are 8 main divisions of karma. So that's why we call the 8 karmas or art karma. Now karmas are divided into 8 karmas are divided into 2 subdivisions. 4 are called ghati karma, and the other 4 are called aghati. Aghati meaning that which does not destroy the fundamental qualities of the soul. And the ghati karmas are the ones which destroy or obstruct. I mean, nothing can destroy the soul's qualities. There's a misnomer, Michamiduktam. The Kati karma will obstruct the effects of will obstruct the qualities of the soul which are essential to its basic function and which obstruct the main qualities of the soul. So the four Ghati karmas that we are talking about are the knowledge obstructing karma or gnana varaniya karma, that which obstructs knowledge. Knowledge is a fundamental quality of the soul. The limitations in our knowledge are as a result of the amount of gnana varniya karma that is obstructing that knowledge from coming out. A lot of you may have heard that there are 5 types of gnana varniya karma, because there are 5 types of knowledge. All living beings at a basic level will have what is called mati and shrut gnan. Mati is basic understanding. Even at the very basic level, one sensed life will have a small part of their souls or the soul's knowledge opened up, so that the awareness of what is around them to a very limited extent is a fundamental quality of every life. So every soul would have a small amount of their total knowledge open, and depending on the level and the depth of our gnana varniya karma and the strength of and the power of that gnana varniya karma, our knowledge is obstructed. And when that gets less and less, when that obstruction gets less and less, when the burden of gnana varniya karma becomes less and less, the soul slowly reaches greater levels of knowledge. And we have talked in some of our stories about the knowledge of everything that is happening within a certain radius called Avdignan. Then there is Manparyognan, which allows the soul to be aware of the thoughts of all living beings with a mind, and Keval Gnan, which is total knowledge, and that becomes apparent when the soul gets rid of these four Gati karmas. The soul would still be within a body until the time that that Keval Gnani actually reaches the end of their life, that particular life, and then the soul travels straight up to moksha as a completely free soul. But once the soul acquires Keval Gnan, it is in that life going to go to moksha. And Keval Gnan is the fundamental basic quality of the soul, but when that is obstructed at various levels, we have a limited amount of knowledge. One is Matignan, Srutgnan, Audignan, Manparivgnan. Those are all limited, and in comparison to those limited knowledges, Keval Gnan is complete, total knowledge of everything in the past, present, and the future. So, knowledge obstructing karma or Gnan avarniya karma, then Darsana avarniya karma. The soul has the capacity to view the whole universe and the space beyond the universe. And that karma which obstructs this particular ability of the soul, this particular natural quality of the soul, is called Darsana Varaniya karma. Then, by nature, the soul is completely unattached to anything which is not of itself, meaning it is vitrag. It does not have an attachment or hatred towards anything. Its state, like we say that our Tirthankars are vitrag. So when the soul achieves a state of Keval Gnan, when the Monia karma is completely rid of, it is at that moment that Keval Gnan actually arises, or it actually becomes clear that this has become manifest when Monia karma is completely got rid of. And with the Monia karma, the Gnana Varni and the Darshana Varniya karma also go. And the fourth Gati karma is Antray karma. Antray karma is that which obstructs the power of the soul. The power, meaning the soul has infinite power, which is way beyond the strength of anybody uh, that anybody can imagine. And a Tirthankar Paramatma, right from the time of birth, has got enough power which is greater than that of Indra, than that of a Chakravarti or a Baldeva Vasudev. And as a lot of you know, we talk about this story about Bhagwan Mahavir during Paryushan on the reading of the Kalp Sutra, when Indra Maharaj and all the other devas had taken the newly born baby Bhagwan Mahavir, and this happens with every Tirthankar, to Mount Meru to do the puja or abhishek, where they are pouring uh, lots and lots of pots full of auspicious water from great oceans. The Indra at the time of Bhagwan Mahavir's sort of this birth celebration ceremony has a doubt in his mind. He says Bhagwan Mahavir as a baby, his newly born is so small, is he going to be able to withstand this great uh, streams of water that we are going to pour on him as part of the ritual. And it's not just one or two devs. There are millions of devs who've gathered there on Mount Meru to perform this ceremony all together, and they're all going to be sort of working together to finish that ceremony, and it's going to involve lots and lots and lots of water being poured on Bhagwan Mahavir. Is he going to be able to withstand this? And Bhagwan Mahavir, the baby, understood this from his Avdignan, that Indra is having some doubt about my strength, and to sort of set his mind at rest that the Tirthankar Paramatma, even at that stage as a newly born, the strength of the Tirthankar's uh, soul or the body and the total power of the soul is so great that he need not fear about this. So the story goes that Bhagwan Mahavir pressed his little toe onto Mount Meru, and there was enough power to actually start shaking the mountain. And when everything gets disturbed, Indra is wondering what is happening and why is the mountain shaking, and who in their right mind, if there is somebody with that kind of power trying to disrupt this auspicious occasion. And he again uses his own Avdignan and then realizes that this is a message from the baby Bhagwan Mahavir teaching me that don't worry, a Tirthankar's strength is nearing the infinite strength of the pure soul. So Antaray karma is the karma which obstructs the power of the soul. Then there are four agati karmas. The four agati karmas are Nam karma, Aishya karma, Gotra karma, and Vedaniya karma. Vedaniya karma is that which gives you pain and sort of peace or pleasure. So Sata Vedaniya and Asata Vedaniya, two divisions. Sata Vedaniya is that which gives you pleasure, and Asata Vedaniya is that which gives you pain. So that is Vedaniya karma. That karma is agati, meaning even in the existence of that karma, the soul's absolutely fundamental qualities are not obstructed, and the soul can be keval gnani and still will have this four agati karmas until the time that it goes to moksha. Ayushya karma, meaning the karma which ensures that the soul is imprisoned in that particular body. So for us, it is the human body, and the amount of that karma determines the length of our life. And the soul separates from this body, and we call it death, when that Ayushya karma is finished and takes up another body with its own Ayushya karma. So Vedaniya karma, Ayushya karma, Nam karma. Nam karma is the karma which determines the various characteristics of that body that the soul is going to occupy. So the Nam karma gives the body, it translates the various things and the peculiarities that we have individually. So Nam karma is responsible for the shape of our body, for the color of our body, all those different things that we can see in ourselves, in animals, in birds, and all those things. And Gotra karma is the karma which determines our status in society. So Uch Gotra, Nich Gotra. So being born in that part of the society where that whole clan is considered to be good and of a higher strata, no matter how much we try, the basic concept of class is very difficult to eliminate. And those class differences exist in the animal kingdom as well. So if some of you may be following the studies on animal behavior, uh, there are lots of studies which are depicting the class society within groups of animals as well, and the status of different um, parts of that animal society. In human society, we know that for a fact. And even though in modern times we've been trying very hard to ensure that class differences do not matter, invariably some class differences do arise. And we all know about that. So that is Gotra Karma. Nam Karma, Aishya Karma, Gotra Karma, and Vedaniya Karma. Those are the four Agati karmas. Okay? Lots of new terms. I've got two or three questions in the chat, or I've got three messages. Let me see. Okay. No, those are not questions. Okay.
I have one question that has been sent to me.
Okay, great. Tell me,
Um,
because I think this is the right time to.
the statement that soul is always there has been and will be,
Mhm.
then does that mean all souls that are to be born are already nigot, i.e., there are no new ones being created?
Absolutely. So you got the. We've always existed, and the pool of souls. So this is a question that arises in people's mind through time immemorial, and there is a statement within our Jain Sastras which says that if anybody ever in the past, in the future, will ever ask a Tirthanka Paramatma or a Keval Gnani, that if the road to moksha continues to be open and souls leave the universe and do not come back to be reborn again, because once a soul is completely liberated, it goes to moksha, then will there not be a time in the future when the universe will be devoid of souls, because no new souls are being created? And this is a difficult concept to grasp, but the answer to this question that a Tirthankar Paramatma or a Kevagnani would give is that so far meaning at any time, if somebody today asks that question of a Keval Gnani in Mahavide Kshetra or Simandar Swami Bhagwan in Mahavide Kshetra, the answer would be that out of the infinite Nigod, an infinitely small part of that Nigod's lives within that Nigod has yet gone to moksha. And that would be the answer forever in the future. And that has been the answer forever in the past. So Nigod is infinite, the number of souls is infinite, and there is a simple mathematical sort of formula that infinity plus infinity is infinity, infinity minus infinity is infinity, infinity multiplied by infinity is infinity. So infinity remains infinite. So the universe will never be devoid of souls. There are no new ones being created. And because the soul is eternal, the soul doesn't die. And what we see around us is the effect of karma, the soul moving from one life to another, going through life and death in that cycle. Okay. Any other questions, Kavit?
I have a question. I've been sent in a question,
Yeah.
Ajit Pai.
Yeah.
If Tirthankas are guides, Do we have gods and goddesses?
Yes. So the gods and goddesses that we talk about are karma when we talk about the four uh, different cycles. So Dev, Manushya, Tiryanj, and Narak. The soul goes through uh, uh, these different lives from one life to another, being born as a human being, being born as an animal or a four-sensed being or a three-sensed being, two-sensed being, or a single-sensed being like a plant, a leaf, a seed, or Prithvikai, meaning the life within soil and that which is of the earth, of fire, of wind, and of water. So all those elements, as Jainism says, are life. So the soul would go from one life to other. And so that is Tiryanj, and then there is Narak. So it is the place where souls which have acquired a huge amount of karma, and there is no way of getting rid of that except by suffering the punishment that is due. And Narak is a place where we would suffer the severest punishment for a very, very long time until that karma is spent, and then the soul gets freed. And there is a place, the gods and goddesses, called Devlok, where if there is a lot of punya karma, and the best way of the a long, happy, materially happy, fulfilled life is basically that of a Dev. So a Dev and a Devi would be born in this Devloks, and there are different levels of Devloks, and then spend a long time. So the shortest lifespan of a Dev or Devi is about 10,000 years, and the longest is about 33 Sagarupams. Sagarupam is an infinitely long amount of time. Similarly, in Narak, I'm not sure about the minimum length of life in Narak, but the maximum is also 33 Sagarupams. And there are 7 different hells from the top to the bottom, and they increasingly become worse and worse in the level of punishment and the time that souls would spend there. Okay. Any other questions?
Yep. What do the Tirthankars do once they achieve moksha, and can they ever come down to earth?
No, it's not just Tirthankars. Every soul which goes to moksha, every Siddh soul. So not all, as we know that during one-time cycle there are 24 Tirthankars. So we were 24 Tirthankars, but during this time, from the time of Bhagwan Rushabdev to the time of Bhagwan Mahavir, lots and lots of other souls have gone to moksha. So the road to moksha was open throughout that period. So there are lots and lots of souls which have gone to moksha, and none of them will ever come back, because there wouldn't be any point when you are absolutely, completely blissful, happy, complete, total knowledge. There's nothing to do but being yourself. And this is again a very difficult concept for us to grasp. And in one of my classes years ago, one of my students was asking, so what's the point of moksha when you're going to do anything? And this comes from, and we all, to an extent, find it extremely difficult to be still, to not do. But the fundamental peace, happiness, satisfaction, knowledge, omniscience comes from just being. So the whole purpose of life should be to be and to exist as we are, without dependence, without anything else affecting us. and without any desire to do anything, because you're completely fulfilled. Why would you want to do anything at all if you are totally powerful, but you don't have any inclination or any attachment or any hatred to exercise that power for the benefit of others or for the destruction of others, but that is attachment. But you would still have infinite compassion and an infinite karuna, as we call it, infinite love for all other living things that you would recognize as being absolutely equal to you. So it's like the whole universe is your brethren. Every soul in the universe is your brother or sister. And that is what we remind ourselves. Khame me sabva jive sabve jiva kamantu me mitti me sava bhuesu veram mazana kene. Says, I ask for forgiveness. I forgive all living beings who may have caused me any harm, so I completely forgive them. I'm asking for forgiveness from all living beings who I may have hurt in any way. Every living being in the universe is my friend, and I do not have enmity with any living being. And that is the natural quality state of the soul. And it is that fulfilling total love, total compassion, total knowledge, absolute power, but without any need or desire to do anything with that. That is the state of the soul in moksha. And when we get deeper into ourselves and begin to realize, so one of the things that you almost find it impossible to experience is that if you look back at any moment in life, and then if you're lucky, some of us may experience a few moments of this kind of bliss, and you examine that state of mind when you felt completely calm and peaceful and very contented and relaxed, and you think back and reflect on what was that thing that made you happy, you will find that if it is the state that would give you the maximum amount of peace and happiness, is that that state, in that state, you were not actually, you didn't have a cause for that state. So it wasn't because you won something, it wasn't because you achieved something, it wasn't because you did something good and you were appreciated. It was a state which was there just because you were yourself, even for that brief moment. So it is something that needs exploration on a personal level. Anything else?
A question has come through. Is it just the humans who go to Narc?
No. Animals go to Nark. I'm not sure about whether you can go to Nark from Devlok. I think not, but I'm not absolutely sure. But in certain five-sensed, very violent life forms, the next life is always that of Nark. So there is a very interesting story there about the effect of karma acquired through bad thoughts. So Jainism describes kind of a life form, and in our modern time, if we look at this life form in the deep oceans, there's a huge mammal. The way it feeds, and I think it's describing the huge whales. And I don't know if you have, I'm sure there are lots of buffs here who have watched nature programs. If you look at the way a whale feeds on plankton or small krill life in the oceans, it opens its mouth, takes in a lot of water, and then closes its mouth. And from the way the teeth join like this, the bigger life that is unable to get past that sieve that has been formed with the jaws closing stays inside, and the whale feeds on uh, those animals' life, whatever it's eating. And that particular animal, and I mean, what Jainism is describing may not be exactly the kind of whales that we are talking about, but at the end of that life of lifelong violence and killing so many uh, lives during that uh, long life, that soul will always go to the sixth hell, Chatti Narakma. But it says that in the eye of that particular large sea mammal creature which lives in the deep oceans, there is a very tiny life form which sits as a kind of a parasite in its eye and is watching what is happening as the whale or this large creature feeds on a daily basis. And this one thought keeps on going on in this creature's mind, that if I was in the place of this creature, I can see that it's letting go all those other small beings or all the other sea life that don't get trapped in that sieve, and those are all escaping. But if I was in this creature's place, I would not let any one of them escape. So throughout his life or her life, sitting in that eye without any capacity to kill life at the level as this large creature is doing on a daily basis, it is constantly thinking that it would not let any of these small lives either escape, and he goes to the seventh hell. That is something that is described in Jainism, that this is how the cycle, and we wouldn't be, if a Kevalgnani were to tell us that you've been in those lives many, many times before, I wouldn't be surprised, because we've been all over the universe. Okay, so this illustrates two things of, yes, Narak is open to us and to animals and probably to other beings as well. I'm not sure about Devs. We'll need to find out. So, but definitely it is open to us. Okay. Let me just see.
There is one more question.
Yeah.
Is Kal linear?
Kal is linear, meaning the smallest indivisible unit of Kal is Samai, according to Jainism, which is infinitely smaller than a second. And it is linear, and within the universe where we've got the Jyotish Chakra, sun, moon, stars moving about, that is measured, but if you're looking at some of the concepts that are floating about now about time travel and um, sort of things reversing and being corrected, some of the things that we see in science fiction movies or reading those kind of science fiction stories about time travel and all that, uh, that doesn't happen. According to Jainism, every Keval Gnani would know what is happening currently with any soul, with any matter within the universe, and well, nothing happens outside the Lok Akash, but the state of Alok Akash, where there is no movement, it would know that simultaneously, immediately, at every given moment, and also absolutely know what has happened to that particular soul or that particular piece of material or matter in the past, and will happen to that in the future. So Kevalgnani would know all that. So in that respect, the journey from past, present, future being known to a Kevalgnani, and we all have that capacity as the soul in its pure form. It's like everything in the universe is just reflected back. So the soul acts as a mirror, and everything that's happening, has happened, will happen in that linear time is reflected back. So that is basically Keval Gnan, and we all have that capacity. It will arise if we get rid of all our karmas and achieve Keval Gnan, all our Kati karmas or Gnana Varniya karma. Okay, anything else?
I have a couple more.
Okay, I think let me just uh, give me 1 second. Let me
Sure.
just see if I'm right. Okay, this is the last slide actually, the 5 summarize, and I'll answer the question and then I'll finally just introduce the terms here, and we'll start off with some of these cause and effect uh, debate next time and talk a bit more in detail about karmas and uh, the way they are, the soul attracts karmas and what happens to them. So we'll talk more about that. So let's carry on with the questions.
Okay, so this has come to me. I'm not understanding the concept of karma, which
Mhm,
decides on the soul's next journey.
mhm,
As in, if I was those persons binding karma, then why
mhm.
would my soul suffer the consequences?
You
And
are your soul. If you are the person, you are the person because the soul is occupying you. So I am Ajit in this life. I got born into this life as a result of whatever karma I had acquired in my past life or previous lives, and the nature of my body, my relationships with my parents, who were going to be my brothers, sisters, all that was to an extent determined. But as an individual, how I grew up, what sort of illnesses I suffered from, what sort of strengths and weaknesses I would have during my life, the course that my life has taken so far, a lot of that is determined by my karmas from previous lives. Obviously, we'll come to that as to how the effect of karmas actually unfold, and effort plays a part, time plays a part, uh, the nature of uh, me or the nature of things plays a part. So those are different elements that ensure that karma comes into fruition with the help of catalysts. And those catalysts are some of the things that make we create a sequence of events. So the karma needs the assistance of a circumstance, needs the assistance of an agent. So if, for example, I am crossing a road, a driver is going very down the road very carefully, but suddenly as I'm crossing the road, he gets a phone call and he recognizes the ringtone. It's from his wife or child who he has been worried about and who may be quite ill, and he suddenly gets extremely distracted and distressed and picks up the phone and does not see me crossing the road, knocks me down, and I get killed at that moment. Directly, the reason why I got killed at that moment in our common understanding would be that this was a careless driver who picked up the phone, which he shouldn't have done, and this would be charged as manslaughter. In real terms, I died at that moment because my Ayushya karma ended at that moment. And it is quite possible that I may have harmed that particular person in a previous life and created a bad karma, and he unknowingly was actually fulfilling his destiny by killing me in the process of driving. He's an agent. The real culprit is what I had done myself. I mean, just very briefly, there is a story about Bhagwan Mahavir. You all know, and then there is an area in India where this particular event happened, and it is that story where uh, a goal or a cow herd comes to Bhagwan Mahavir, where he is in the jungle, deep in meditation, and the cow herd wants to go somewhere to finish some other business, and he um, wants somebody to look after his herd of cows. So he sees Bhagwan Mahavir standing there in deep meditation, and he just puts a request to him and says, look, I'm going away to the village to get some business done. My cows are here, please look after them. And he just disappears. He thinks that this is a monk, an ascetic, and he will look after these cows, so there's nothing to worry about. And Bhagwan Mahavir is obviously in deep meditation, and he is not interested in any of this. The Gowal comes back, and those cows have obviously wandered about everywhere. And then he spends a huge amount of time trying to find them and gather them. And he keeps on, before that, he keeps on asking Bhagwan Mahavir, I told you to look after them. Why didn't you look after them? Bhagwan Mahavir again is in deep meditation, does not respond to anything. And this Gowal basically says that I'm really going to punish you because you have caused me so much trouble. I left these cows in your uh, care and keep, but you've not done a basic uh, human duty. So he says, it seems as if you can't hear and your ears are blocked, so I'm going to block them further. So he takes two wooden nails and hammers these large wooden nails into each ear. That obviously we would understand would be an infinitely painful thing to have done, but Bhagwan Mahavir doesn't blame him, doesn't blame uh, does not shout out or cry out in pain, just suffers that and stays deep in meditation. And the Goal, the cowherd, gets those nails pressed in the ear and disappears. And then when Bhagwan Mahavir goes to seek alms, food in the next town, people who are watching him, there's a very concerned Shravak who sees that there's something wrong with Bhagwan. Bhagwan Mahavir is not telling anybody what's happening. This was before he achieved Keval Gnan, and he's not saying anything, but people can see that he must be in severe pain. And somebody examines him and discovers that there are two large wooden nails having been hammered into his ears, and very kindly he decides that I must do something about it. He runs into the town and brings out an ironsmith or a smith who has got large tongs, and gets a Vaid or a medicine man to produce something that would maybe soothe the pain a little, and gets this person to pull the nails out of the ear. And it is said that at that moment of the nails being pulled out was so extremely painful that for once and the only time in his life, Bhagwan Mahavir actually shouts out in pain. And obviously with the strength of the Tankar, his shout was so loud and the volume of that sound energy was so great that it cracked a mountain. And that mountain's crack, and the place that where this happened is still around in India. And if you are ever going that side, it's a place to see. But the story is that that Gowal was in a previous life when Bhagwan Mahavir was a Vasudev, Triprushta Vasudev. That Gowal or that cowherd was a servant of his, and he was in charge of the musicians. This Vasudev, who was the great king of 3 continents, had left a simple instruction that while I'm relaxing and you're playing the music, you must stop playing the music as soon as I fall asleep. But all the musicians and their leader became so engrossed in the music, that is divine, beautiful music that was being played, that they forgot to notice that the Triprushta Vasudev, the king, was asleep. And as the music was going on and everybody was engrossed and listening, the king, Triprushta Vasudev, woke up, and he obviously was very upset and angry that you disturbed my sleep. You did not stop the music I had instructed, so I must punish you. So he gets this leader of this particular group of men and says, because you were so interested in your music, I'm going to pour liquid lead in your ears. And he does that. And he formed such a bad karma at that moment that that particular cow herd in that previous life, that person in that previous life of Bhagwan Mahavir's Triprushta Vasudev gets born as this cowherd, and unknowingly his desire to hurt Bhagwan Mahavir at that moment stemmed from that pap that Bhagwan Mahavir had committed, and the enmity that that cowherd had formed as a result of that punishment that was given to him at that time. So that is the cause and effect. Such a simple sort of story about that. So what happens to the soul is as a result of its own karmas. I won't go into the details of this. I know we are running out of time. Any more questions? I'm quite happy to continue if everybody is awake.
I've got a follow-on question from that.
Yeah,
If the soul has power to guide myself to do the right thing and move towards moksha, then why does it not guide me?
because it does not know. It has not yet reached that stage of development when its karma are reduced to an extent where it even begins to recognize itself. So some of the first fundamental awareness of that we actually get to when we are beginning to uh, become more spiritual are there is a description of the 8 states. It's called the Yoga Ani Art Drasti, and there is extensive literature on that. And those 8 drastis are described uh, in a slightly different way, but from a different angle in Patanjali Yoga. And there are texts of this particular text is called Yog Drasti Samuch. And there are great scholars who have talked about that. And there is one scholar who was absolutely brilliant, Acharya Mukti Darshan Sureshwarji Maharaj, who has written a 3-volume discourse on this 8 trustees of yoga, and it describes the development of the soul from the basic to slowly going up and up, and there is only a certain level that will, when we reach, we begin to recognize that we are different from the body, that what is the true nature of ourselves, and then we begin to make the effort to actually get further purified and then doing good things. So the soul does not make that effort because that level of knowledge, that level of acceptance, that level of the inner purity that is required to begin that process may or may not have yet. But chances are that all of us who even hear Naukar mantra, who have actually been born into a family where this kind of spiritual talk, or in a society where that you get the opportunity to even hear and listen, have come to a stage where some of those basic level of understanding. So the very fact that you are asking that question does mean that you got an inquiry about that and you have a desire to learn. So in spiritual terms, the fact that you're asking that question is actually an example of that state of mind. If you look at, say, a state where even that question doesn't arise, I am a body, I get converted to ash, or I get buried into a 6-foot hole, and that is all there is to life, is one way of looking at our lives. Or I have this body, but I am not the body, is another spiritual way of looking at it. And I have this body, I've come from somewhere, and when this body ends or dies, I'll be going somewhere else. Is another way of looking at it. So this separation of who I am, I mean, it's very simple to talk about and explain, but internally, if we examine ourselves at every moment in life, do we really recognize our distinction as a soul from the body? That is called Ved Gnan. Ved Gnan meaning you understand the distinction, and that is people who have reached that stage are actually at every moment feeling that and recognizing that. And that is a fairly very, very high level of spiritual development. Until then, with our minds and our brains, we accept this. And even me, I'm teaching you this, and I've been teaching the same thing for a long time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has become internalized. And without that internalization, without that spiritual upliftment of purity, progress would be very, very limited. But the fact that we start learning, we carry on learning, gradually will come to a stage when that thing does happen. So as a lot of us teachers say, like Saurabh and says, listen to what we are telling you, but not what we are doing. Because there's no difference between you and me. We are all at the same level and we are all in a journey together. Any last questions, Mira, Kavit?
I have one final question.
Okay.
If there are a finite number of souls, i.e. no new souls, and the world's population is rising, does this mean other species are diminishing?
There's an infinite number of souls. So when you use the term finite, finite is limited. Infinity is infinity. Nothing is diminishing. As we said earlier, souls don't die. And souls, unless they are liberated, are constantly occupying somebody or other. So this variation that we are looking at, and within the context of our own known world, as we know, the 6 continents that we call Earth at the moment, is an infinitesimally small part of the universe. So what is happening with us at this time is happening because of the nature of the time that we are living in. Things are declining, deteriorating, there are troubles, but overall, the picture, we are talking about the number of humans and we are talking about the human population increasing, but we also know that by our activity, we have diminished a lot of other populations. We have been responsible for causing the extinction of a huge number of species, not just animals, but plants and others. So, but that extinction and what we have done and that reduction is within the context of the world that we know. But if you are looking at the universal context, in the context of the whole universe, then that doesn't change. There are no new souls, no soul dies, and even those who go to moksha, as we've seen in that answer earlier, that every Tirthankar will answer the question, how many souls have gone to moksha? At any time, the answer is an infinitely small particle of an infinite nigod. And the road to moksha has been open for infinite time in the past. So the cycles of Tirthankars has been going on forever. Even within our time cycle, we've had 24 in this place, but there are 4 other Bharat Kshetras, 5 other Airavat Kshetras, and 5 other Mavideh Kshetras, each one with 32 divisions within which a Tirthankar can be born. So at the time of Bhagwan Ajitnath, our second Tirthankar, in total there were 170 Tirthankars in these 5 Bharat, Airavat and Mavideh Kshetras together. Okay, so the universe is, number of souls is infinite.
Ajit, I think we can bring this session to a close now.
Yeah, it's 9:30 now.
Yes.
So I think we should. Thank you all very much for the questions that you asked, and I hope that what we talked about has opened some more doors and windows for you for further inquiry, and I've stimulated an interest in learning a bit more. So what we've introduced so far, I hope in this last 10 sessions has prepared the groundwork for this slightly advanced topic, but even for this topic, we are just touching the surface. We are just talking about some basic concepts, but keep on revising them, and we can explore them further. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of our great Tirthankars and Jain Dharma, I ask for forgiveness with thought, word, and deed. Manochan Gayati, Tasmichami Dukadam. Thank you all again. Sarva Mangala Mangalyam, Sarkalyan Karanam, Pradhanam, Saradharmanam, Jainam Jeti, Sasanam. See you all next week.